I saw it's a similar thing, but I saw you at the parlour at the Magic Castle.
Did you?
Years ago. And you picked me for the Sophie... I don't know the name of it.
The Sophie Trick. Oh, my God.
And I don't think I've ever felt such intensity from a magic performance before or afterwards. You made me feel so peculiar. The way you were looking... So how do you do that? How is it because it was personal? Is it because it was your wife? Is it just acting? How do you make that? Because it's not just the Sophie Trick. It's a lot of your mental Get Nyman stuff and everything. It's a lot of it's intense, man. How do you create that?
Firstly, that's amazing that you saw me there and I got you up to do that. How incredible! Well, there's a few. There's a lot in that question, I think. And the Sophie Trick is a really useful example of it. It's a very extreme example of it, perhaps. For those who don't know what the Sophie Trick is, it's basically, it was my version rather. It's a 3-card Monty. It's Find the Lady. So instead of it being 2 black cards and a queen, and they're sort of parlour size, and it's on, you're sort of propping them on a stand. And I would look away, and Damien would come up and mix them, and then I would, without looking, be able to tell you where the queen is. Except in the version that I do, it's a photo of Sophie on our wedding day. Sophie's my wife, and then 2 cards that aren't Sophie, and I'm keeping track of her. So as a sort of what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, it's kind of a perfect example of everything that I try to think about. With the first thing is, I did not invent the methodology or the trick. It's an old trick that I kind of changed the cards and the routine, basically. So I took a Find the Lady and I made it about my wife. Not only did I make it about my wife, the 2 cards other than my wife, instead of being inconsequential cards, one of them says shul, S-H-U-L, which is a synagogue, and the other word says chuppah, which is the canopy, which is the Hebrew word for the canopy a Jew gets married under. So the presentation is now about me, a Jewish man, talking openly about his religion, showing you a photo of his wife on his wedding day, connecting that to we were married in a shul under a chuppah, and then talking openly about I love her so much, my wife, that I kind of feel very connected to her and can tell you, sometimes I can tell you where she is. Well, that is a number one, a completely different plot from 2 are black, here's the queen, mix them up, where she goes, what are you going to bet? A $5, a $10, let's have a look. No, you lose, I do it again, take a look, this time we're just going to do... Which is just a sort of smooth, there's no drama to it really. The only drama is, you're a schmuck, I'm a winner. Mm-hmm. Whereas in revealing true stuff about yourself, your audience understands that there's something true going on. Not only that, not only are you talking about true things, but I like talking about true things that are a little bit uncomfortable, because it puts your audience a little bit at edge. Well, that's great, because it means they don't know where it's going. It means there's great opportunity when things are a little bit tense. There's great opportunity to find good gags in there and alleviate the tension with laughter. And also it means the work that you are doing is not like anybody else's. There's nothing to compare that trick to. Well, all it is a find the lady that I thought, how can I do that that's a bit more interesting? In terms of the intensity, funnily enough, I think, Damien, it goes back to what I was talking about before, which is this notion of you've got to be vulnerable and you've got to commit to things. And I'm going to commit to saying out loud in front of everybody, I love my wife, Sophie. This is her. I'm showing you a personal photo. This is her on our wedding day. This is her in a wedding dress. I love her. I loved her then. I love her now. and you're risking. I mean, I did it a few times in England. And I got to tell you, it's one thing doing that routine in LA, where there are a lot of Jewish people, and in America, not in all of America, but New York, LA, lots of Jewish people. And not only that, even if they're not present in the room, Jewish culture is very much absorbed within that world. That is not the case in Europe. That is not the case in England. So to stand in a corporate and go, the routine starts by taking out a card, turning it round, shul. Not as many as you would have said. Shul. To a man like me, a Jew, shul means everything. It's the synagogue. It's where a house of worship. The next one comes out, chuppah. Not as many of you would have pronounced it. Chuppah. Now, it's worked to most of you in this room. This word means nothing, but to someone like me, a Jew. Fucking hell! I can't tell you. Standing up in Rotherham or wherever I was, and beforehand I was thinking, am I going to do that routine tonight? Because this is a weird, rowdy audience, and this is not comfortable. And I did it, and it was really uncomfortable, But it's quite exciting to do tricks that keep you on edge as well.
Sure.
In terms of the intensity, that is also about, of course it is, part of it is the acting, and I like that. The power of silence is something that magicians don't really use properly.
Scared of it, I think, often.
And it's a really powerful tool, because what you tend to see is the pattern, the this and the that, and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then da-da-da-da-da, it's gone over there, and let's have a look. Oh, it's there, thank you so much. Let's do it again, because over here, if I take the glass and I put it there, this one goes in there like that, and now, cling, cling. Now, there's just no taking a moment and letting it happen. So when you see someone who kind of does that, maybe in a slightly different way, like Shim Lim or whoever, when you saw that act on Foolers for the first time, the commitment is like, whoa, and the silence and the smoke and the this and the that, it's just so exciting, it's thrilling. But also I think that intensity also comes from, there's a word I came up with years and years ago, which is faux, which is faux, F-A-U-X, as in pretend, fake, the French for it, and cess, as in, so it's process, but it's faux, the fake process. So when you're doing a trick, it's knowing what the faux is, and it's something we talk about all the time in the Darren room, But it applies across the board. When you take that sponge ball and you put it in your hand, what's the process now? What's happening? What happens to that sponge ball that makes it go from here to there? Or when you turn over the top card and now you tap it on the glass and turn it over and it's changed, what has happened? And I don't mean that every routine has to be this like big, dramatic, huge pauses, but it's worth just asking the question, magically, what are my powers? What is supposed to happen? And if your answer is, I don't know, I don't really care, I just want to do a few good tricks, that's completely valid. But you might also just discover, that's quite a surprise, that's actually quite a good answer. Maybe it's that. Maybe I need to do that or make them say that before that happens, or this or that. Or even You know, most people, their version of process is I wave my hand or snap of the fingers, and you don't even go as far as when I snap my fingers, what happens? Because it's a different trick if you go, okay, here's a coin, that goes in my hand, snap my fingers, it's gone. Is completely different to, I'm going to take the coin, I'm going to put it in my hand. I'm telling you what's going to happen now. It's still there, by the way. I'm going to snap my fingers. When I snap my fingers, it's like starting a car. It's like turning an ignition. And the power that I have when I snap my fingers, as long as I'm looking at the hand, it'll go. Now, if I don't look at the hand and I look down here when I snap my fingers, something will happen there. So I need to be very careful where I look when I snap my fingers. So, coin is here. Ready? Gone. It's a completely different trick. And all I've done, that's just the first thing off the top of my head, but by simply asking the question, what happens when I snap my fingers, changes how you do your magic. And it's not the fault of people, because most of us get into this as a sort of lovely hobby that we love, and all we do is we read the instructions or we watch the presentation, and then we copy exactly that, and that's fine. That's how I do most of my stuff. But when you start just doing a little bit of work, it's amazing how it can transform. It's transformative.
Absolutely. I'm going to mention a German theatre practitioner, and probably a lot of listeners to the show won't be awfully familiar, but there was this bloke called Brecht, and he, at the time he was, this is not for you, this is for everyone else. At the time, it was known as culinary theatre, so the middle and upper classes would go out and they'd leave a play feeling satisfied, like they'd had a nice meal. But Brecht wanted people to feel something. And did that thinking have impact on your work? Because there's that fear from ghost stories, there's that intensity in the Sophie Trick. Is that something that you strive for, to make people feel something?
Oh, I think you have to. I think that's what you have to aim for. Whether you achieve it or not is a different thing, but you have to aim for that. I have a real weight on my shoulders that when an audience comes to see something that you've created, and this is truer now than it's probably been since the Great Depression, money is tight. For people to commit to spending money to come and see a Derren show, to come and see a play I've written, to buy The Moment, my new trick from Penguin, to do anything that is associated with my name, I feel a responsibility profoundly that they get more than their money's worth. That they are over-delivered as a thank you for spending your genuinely hard-earned 25 quid, 50 quid, 100 quid, whatever it is, that you get more than you paid for. I think it's so important. And part of that is, if I can make people feel something, it's fantastic. It's part of the escape, which is why they're there. It's also really good business because they associate you with more than just bland stuff. So that means they'll come back and see the next thing you do. But you can only make people feel something by risking something, which goes all the way back to the first thing you asked. That sense of commitment, that sense of fear of failure, that sense of being vulnerable, and just because you're not going to get into people's hearts, and I don't mean that in a schmaltzy way, but just in terms of moving them. The movement can be scaring them, making them laugh, making them cry, all of those things, whatever it is. You cannot move them unless you've risked failing moving them. And you have to be brave to do that, Because there will be some people who go out, I've sat in the audience of ghost stories. Thank God, overwhelmingly people love it. But I've heard people say, that's fucking rubbish, wasn't it? Didn't like that. There was a production of it in Toronto that didn't really work very well. Although, I've heard people who saw it there liked it. But we saw it, the first preview was a disaster. And there were a couple behind us. Me and Jeremy almost called our film company this. There was a couple behind us, or 3 people. And as it ended, one of them turned to the other and went, well, it was Steve's choice. We almost called our film company Steve's Choice Films.
Bloody Steve.
Yeah. So you can't please everybody, but that's the intent. You want people to just feel something.
Okay, so in your first book, The Golden Rules of Acting, you said, I'm going to look at my words here, when auditioning, rehearsing, or in a performance, take a risk. The worst that can happen is that you get embarrassed. You won't die. So can you give... That's still the theme going through this interview. But how can people apply that to magic and mentalism? How can somebody take a risk doing a card trick?
That's a good question. I mean, it's quite a hard thing to answer because the joy of magic is it's just a fabulous hobby. And when we talk like this, I am not suggesting that when you pull out a pack of cards or the new packet trick you've bought, that you have to come up with some extraordinary... You rip up the instructions, their presentation, and come up with some unbelievably heartfelt, teary presentation. We're just talking sort of in broad terms here.
Sure.
And I think that the risk that you should try and encourage yourself to take is to think what will make your magic, Damien, unique to you. And the things that make it unique to you are unique to who you are, where you were born, what happened in your upbringing. Being honest about that. What happened in your life? How did you feel if one of your parents or both of your parents have passed away? What was that like? What's the worst moment of your life? What's the best moment of your life? What grade guitar did you get to? What was it like when you started learning it? What do you feel like now? How many times did you nearly give up? What's your favourite food? This is how I'll start with people when people come to me to work on their stuff is, who are you? That's how you start. Who are you? Because I cannot recreate who you are. You can't recreate who I am. And that's how you make things personal. The personal choices. That's how you do it. They're the risks. That's how you risk things, is by being vulnerable and opening yourself up and talking about. But again, you don't have to do any of that. You can just do a really good trick. And that's also absolutely fine. It's really important that people don't misinterpret this conversation and think, because it's not like I do this on every single trick that I do. I don't. Very often you just want to do a good, I'll show you something, and you do a good trick. Yeah. But in terms of how you work in that deeper way and how you do that, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. It is talk about to dig in and look at who you are. What were you like at school? Who was your favourite teacher? Who was the teacher you hated? What were your reports like? The minute you start talking about that, what do you like for breakfast? Do you have the same breakfast every day? What's your best breakfast? Do you skip breakfast? Are you one of those people who... I can never get my head around those people who are like, oh God, I haven't eaten today. Fucking hell, it's all I ever think about. Literally, wake up thinking
Yeah.
about breakfast and what I'm going to make for lunch. And whilst I'm getting breakfast ready, I think, oh, supper tonight. I know what we could... You know, and also the other universal thing that's so important is the more micro honest you are about your oddnesses and your personality, the more you will touch people. The more specific you are, the more universal it is. And that's a massive thing to get your head around. Is you think, well, nobody's going to do that when they're in the toilet apart from me. That's how that's why comedians, you know, you go and see the most popular comics in the land, whether you like them or not, you know, Michael McIntyre or whoever, and their observational comedy is all things they do that they're just talking about, that you go, that's me! I do that, you do that, you know. That's what it is. Except magic, somehow, we don't do any of that, apart from the few really good people who do it. Most magic is just, I just do the trick. I explain what I'm doing as I do it. That's what most magic presentations are.
So is that... Do you think that's down to laziness, down to a lack of thinking, down to bad mentoring? Why is it like that, do you think?
I don't... I think most... If we're honest, most people who do magic, again, we're talking in broad terms, but I would say
For sure.
certainly 90%, if not 95% of people who do magic are male. Of that, probably 50% are either on the spectrum somewhere, or are a little bit solitary. So there are certain patterns that go within all that, which means you don't have a terribly grey outside eye on yourself. Not only that, even the ones who are working pros don't tend to have directors or people who look at their work with an outside eye and can give genuine constructive ways of thinking, or even within friendship groups. Really, it's hard to take criticism. It's hard, and it's hard to be critiqued, and it's hard to understand how to improve. So none of it's necessarily all about laziness or failing or bad education or any of those things. It's just sort of the nature of the hobby of it, really. And most of the joy, unless you're out there doing tricks for people, it's amazing how many people are, you know, if you go to Blackpool and there's 5,000 magicians there, there's probably only 800 people who actually go out and work. That means there's, you know, 4,000 plus people who are at their happiest, chatting with their 6 mates, showing each other the shit that they've just bought that's going into the back of a drawer that they'll look at on the train home and then stick on Magic Week to sell a year later. And what the hell did I buy? That was 120 quid. You know, but that's part of... We all do the same. And that's part of the joy of it, you know. So most of us don't really need to improve or come up with other better ways. You know, and also, let's not forget, it can be intimidating, you know, when you see Josh bringing out a new trick, you know, he's highly polished, extraordinarily skilled. He seems to have everything covered perfectly. And I look at that and think, fucking hell, God, he's impressive. I'm never going to be like that. Jesus. How's he doing that? How have they manufactured that so perfectly? Look at it all. Look at him. It's brilliant. You know, so it's easy to just think, I don't want to do any of that. Don't want to do that. I just want to deal down, say stop, turn it over. Was that it? Which is also great. So there's a lot to... They're not easy answers, any of these. The best thing is, it's just great to talk about, isn't it? I just love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But talking about that outside eye, as you said, probably the majority of people listening to this or watching it have never worked with a director. What does it bring?
Oh my God, it's transformative. It's transformative. You can't, as long as it's the right person and as long as they're doing it for the right reasons, it's everything. I mean, I don't mean this in a big ego way at all. I think my skill base is quite unique in so much that I have a great magical knowledge and I have a great theatrical knowledge, and I create and I perform. That's not usual. You don't find a lot of... It's quite unusual to have someone who was offered the job of doing it not want to do it. So I can bring to bear all of those performance things, all of the magical knowledge, as well as the outside eye of a director. I don't think there are, that's different from a normal theatre director doing it, because... But the thing you have to understand, if you want a director to work with you, the thing you have to understand is you've just got to be open about methods. If you're putting on a magic show, whether that is just 6 tricks, and your act for the parlour, or your act for the magic circle, or your act for your local church hall, or whatever it is, and someone's coming to look at it, you could just tell them the methods. You've got to trust them enough to be able to say, can you see the thing on the back of the chair? Can you come and sit down here? Do we need to bring the lights down, or is the thread, can you see it glistening? It goes from here to here.
Right.
So you need to just look for that. Are you seeing that? No, but when you move your arm like that, I'm aware that there is something there. Brilliant. Okay. So can we do it on the other side? No, because that's in the way. All right. Also, it might be that trick that you're finishing with the trick you open with, why don't you finish with that? That's your best trick. Because this thing's quite good, or you could do that first and then that. There's just a million things it can be. It can also be, okay, can I be really honest with you? You look a bit fat in those trousers.
Yeah.
You should make sure you get a haircut before the show. Do this, do that. So it has to be, you have to trust them. And again, it's all different levels of directing. It can just be, you may having a look who said, look, I've worked with a few people where you're like, the directing basically boils down to, you cannot make that joke anymore. Things have changed. You can't. You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say that now. Yeah. And very often you don't even think about it, and they're hard things to hear. My kids will say to me, "Dad, you can't say that anymore." And I think, of course I can. Getting a bit touchy. Oh, come on, bloody hell. And then afterwards you sort of think, yeah, they're probably right. Probably shouldn't. So, I'll save that for the. Yeah.
So how can someone find a director to help them?
Well, it depends. It depends who you are. It depends what you want to do. It depends whether you're a pro and you're talking about sincerely working on your act that you're going out earning a living with. If that's the case, you need to employ somebody.
Okay, let's say it's not that, because that's not going to be the majority of people listening.
Then it's about who do you look at in your magic society that you think, I think they're great, and we have a right laugh and I trust them. It can be as simple as that. Will you watch my act and give me some thoughts? I'll do the same for you. I mean, it just, you're looking for a pair of outside eyes that you trust, that can say that you won't. And I'm not saying the person who's giving the notes needs to go out of their way to look for things. And here's a good question to start with. I'm going to show you a trick, okay? Even if it's just a trick. So I'm going to show you this trick now. Okay, done it. What's wrong with it? What don't you like about it? Is better than, what do you think? Yeah, it was good. Yeah. It's really good. Oh, did you see so-and-so last night? And you're off and away. As opposed to, and that can be the same as anything. That can be same as writing a play, whatever it is. Giving it out and saying, what do you think's wrong with this?
So again, it's being vulnerable.
It's totally vulnerable. But you also, you're opening yourself up for the answer. Which is, the minute you did that, I knew there was something, I knew it wasn't really a free choice. And sometimes that can be, so then it's not just about going, oh, okay. It's about, okay, so what do you think would make it feel like a free choice? If we keep the method the same, how can it feel like a free choice? Well, you're just sort of really holding it tightly at the beginning. All right, so if they were on the table, would it be better if it looked like they were messed up on the table, even if they weren't, if I just sort of spread them on the table and pulled a few cards from the bottom out and showed them and said, we're all familiar with cards, yeah? And then put those on the bottom and then ask someone to just sort of gather them up. That'd be great. Suddenly it'd feel, oh yeah, okay, we could do that, couldn't we? So it's not that criticism's direct, it is direction. How do we get this? How can I help you get it to the direction it wants to be going?
Yeah.
So it's also not just about what you want from them. It's what you do when you get that information. It's a process.
I think it can be quite difficult to receive that criticism when somebody
really
when
hard.
Somebody says, maybe not that you look fat in those trousers, but that you flashed there, or I didn't like the way that did this, or whatever. Is there any advice that you can get for how to take that the right way? Is there a way to help process it in your brain?
Well, it's how it's given.
Right.
It's how it's given. Because if you're showing me the trick, if you're showing it to mates and you flash and what you're getting is, ooh, yeah, saw that. Go on then. All right. Yeah, is that it? Yeah, that is it. Yeah. So is that your trick? It's a totally different thing to, you're going to show me the trick, and I'm watching it with an eye to give you thoughts afterwards. Okay, so the first thing is you've got to be careful on that thing because you flashed it. And it's also about, so how do we fix that? These are the things we need to fix. It's not, this is what's wrong with your trick and that's why it was shit. It's, these are the things at the moment I think need to be improved, is part one. Part two, let's chat about how we can improve them. What do you think? And that can be, I don't really like the plot. I don't really understand it. Because sometimes the trick's great. Look, big reaction, that trick of mine. It's not mine, it's Roy Johnson's Nuts and Bolts. It's my presentation. I did it 1,000 times working until I realised the plot as is you, as an audience, as a group around this table, you're going to choose a card, anyone you want. Here's a pack of cards, they name the card. I turn every card over, they say win. What does yours say? Lose. That was my opener. At tables, 1,000 times. Until I realised my opening effect, I love the nuts and bolts of this, but my opening effect is I go win, 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 win. What does yours say? Lose. Oh, that's okay. I'll show you something else. Okay, let's get a rope out and literally changing it to, they name one. I've told them at the beginning, this will probably go wrong. If it goes right, you've got to clap and cheer. If it goes wrong, you're allowed to boo. Okay? So let's hear the boos. Boo. Let's hear the... Hey! All right, here we go. They name a card. If you'd have said that, it says boo, 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 boo. 51 cards say boo. What does yours say? Clap and cheer. Way! It's completely different suddenly.
Was that an epiphany?
It was a total epiphany. It was honestly, after years of me going, why am I starting with that? Because I'd bought Roy Johnson's booklet. I thought the method was brilliant. He was a brilliant working pro. So you just take it as read. So I'm out there doing it. And it worked brilliantly. / the reaction was like, oh. So in changing the words, the plot, suddenly it's like, so it's a completely different trick.
Yeah.
So that would have come out of, if you were doing it to me, so what do you think of this? And I might say, it's not a very good way to open, is it? I mean, the trick's really good. I don't know how you're doing it, or But why do I have to lose? Could I win? Could all of them say lose and I win? That would be better, wouldn't it? Yeah, okay, that would be great. And then it turns into that. Then I just kind of went further with that and was thinking, I don't want to give away a prize every time. That means I've got to carry a prize with me, all that. And then it became boo and clap and cheer. But, you know, even that moment of, oh God, yeah, suppose they could say, they could all lose and they could win. That would be great. Got a prize here. What is the prize? Let's have a look. Oh my God, hang on. The prize is his watch, or the prize is the torn corner, or the prize is just a prize, but maybe you're setting something up. There's something written on the back of the bottle of champagne that's going to pay off later. Who knows?
Andy Nyman, we're out of time, but we finished the show with 4 quick fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes, and I genuinely don't know what the questions are, which tells you I've never listened to this podcast.
But you several times on Young's one, you said, I listen to this every week, I love it. So what's he got that I haven't got? Anyway.
Well, look, as you say that and you tap your T-shirt, that gives me the prediction, doesn't it? That I knew you could. Did you know you were going to wear your shining T-shirt today?
I did put it on because you were coming on the show.
It wasn't because I made you, because
No. I knew you like horror films, so...
Yeah, okay. Anyway, there's my prediction.
Oh, boom!
So, go on. Yeah. I've got 55 blankets here of different horror films. Go on, yeah.
Favourite pizza topping?
Oh. I can't give you a quick fire answer to that. I'm obsessed with pizza and I make them. Okay. I make Neapolitan pizza. So it's 2. If I was buying a pizza, like a Domino's, tuna sweet corn.
Okay.
Otherwise, margarita. Plain. Classic.
This is either going to be an incredibly easy or an impossible question for you. Favourite movie?
Jaws.
Favourite person or people that make music?
Oh, that make music. Wow. I struggle to answer that. Probably something I listen to more than anything at the moment is the Preservation Hall Jazz Band from New Orleans.
And finally, who would you rather fight? One massive Andy or 100 tiny Joshes?
Oh, 100 tiny Joshes. One big Josh. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Andy Nyman.
At the next convention.
Andy Nyman, thank you so much for giving us so much of your time today. I genuinely am delighted and honoured. Thank you very much.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm blown away by the fact I got you up at the Magic Castle.
Boom.